Hi guys, once again we are continuing from the previous segment of this question again on the strip chart or map. Now guys, we are still busy with 6.3, so I'm gonna look at maybe another perspective on how to solve this very same question. So now I'm just going to read quickly and get back to the question, and then now it says here the strip chart map or the strip map shows the distance from Cape Town to Port Elizabeth. Bilentle will be driving from Cape Town to Bedford West. He drives a Mercedes-Benz C63 AMG with a 70-liter fuel tank capacity and fuel consumption of 10.3 liters per 100 kilometers. So this is the information that we are being provided with. So now we are being told that the capacity of the car, it has a capacity of 70 liters. So that's a full tank. And then the fuel consumption, how much fuel does the car uses? So we are told that for every 100 kilometer, it uses about 10.3 liters. 10.3 liters. That's what the car it uses, the rate of using fuel. So now in this question, guys, we are continuing from what we have already covered from the previous question that that says that the distance that he will need to travel from Cape Town to Bedford West. So we have already discovered that on the previous question that the trip distance from these two places, we have a distance of 607 kilometers, a distance of 7 kilometers, and also a distance of 607 kilometers, and also a distance of 712 kilometers. So those are the two distances. Maybe some of you are asking yourself, why do we have two distances here? If you have been following the previous section, we have said that there's two routes that you can use. The route number one is the one from using N1. If you're using N1, so that's the first route. And also we have route number two. Route number two is via N2. So there's this route here, and there's also this one vertical going upwards. So those are the two routes that we have. So that's why we have two distances like this. So now the question that it was asked, therefore, is asking now here. It says, use the given fuel rate, fuel consumption rate to advise Bilentle on the number of times he will need to refuel his car to get to his destination. So we need to use the fuel, the fuel consumption of that car, and then just to advise on the number of times that he will need to refuel the car. Now, how do we get about that? So now this is method number 2, and in the previous method, and then check it on the previous video, and then because there's two perspectives on how to solve this question. Now on this session, I'm going to solve this question by looking at the fuel needed for the trip. Yeah, the fuel needed for the trip. So let's look at that fuel. Let's make it big. Fuel needed for the trip. Now, how do we find the fuel that will be needed for the trip, therefore? So there's two ways that we can do it. So remember, we are given already the rate here. We're given the rate, the fuel consumption. We already have the distance. So now we can use this to calculate the distance that to calculate the fuel that will be needed there. So now how do we do that? So we're going to use the rate. So we're going to say for example, now here's it there. Let me just put it down here. So we can say using the rate, we have this car, it covers about 10, it uses 10.3 liters for every 100 kilometers. So now this is the rate. Now at this rate, therefore, now if we multiply this with the kilometers, therefore, of the trip, which is 607 kilometers. Therefore, if we multiply these kilometers and kilometers, they're going to cancel each other. Therefore, we're going to get what the liters, the fuel that will be needed for this trip. So now, how much fuel that will be needed for this trip? Therefore, if we multiply this like this, therefore, we're going to get around 62,521 liters. So this, if you will be using route number 1, this is the fuel that is going to need. This is the fuel is going to need. So now, if using route number 1, so yeah, if using the first route. So now, according to this, therefore, now what will be the answer? Therefore, since now let's compare. Therefore, so compare with the full tank. We're gonna compare these liters that will be needed with the full tank now. Therefore, with the capacity of the tank, the capacity of the tank therefore is 70. That's the full tank of the car. This trip of 607 is going to need these liters, which are less than that. Which are less than that. So now it means that there will be no need for refueling in this case. So now the answer here, it will be, since, again we can say, since he needs how much? He needs 6.521 liters, which is what, if you check, which is less than 1 full tank. Therefore, he does not need to refuel the car. So now the question was it answered? It says how many number of times that you need to refuel. So therefore here is going to be 0 times. So there's no need for refueling in this case. So that is your answer if you have used route number 1. But for some of us that we've used route number 2, so now what do we do here? You're gonna repeat the very same step. This will be you're gonna repeat the very same step now. Now the fuel consumption, the fuel that will be needed, I'm repeating now for 707, for those who've used 712. Therefore you will need, therefore, how many liters therefore for this distance. So the fuel needed for the trip. Now let's look at it. So you're gonna repeat the same method, liters multiplied by this, and then times 712 kilometers. So now how many liters will you get here? So you'll get about 73,336 liters. So now if we use route number 2, which is from Cape Town to George and then via N12 and then to get to Bedford West. So therefore he will need about this. So now, since now therefore we compare these liters with the full tank of the car, this trip it will need these liters, then they compare with the full tank of the car, which is 70. You can see that this trip it will require more fuel more than the full tank, more than the capacity of the tank of the car. So now in this case, therefore, we can say, since if we've used route number 2, so he will need okay, he will need how much? 73,336 liters, which in this case is more than one full tank. So in this case, therefore, he will, okay, he does need, in this case, he does need to refuel. It does need to refuel, but how many times? Therefore, it would be one time. I don't think it would be more than that. It would be one time. So that's how we can answer this question. So for those that maybe are asking themselves, why do we have two answers for this question? I've already explained in the previous session that the question, it was not specific whether to identify the most cost-effective route to get to Port Fort West from Cape Town, but there are two routes. If you look at the map, that one they can use. Route number 1 is it's via N1, route number 2 is via N2. So that is why we have two answers that are different, in that differs from one another. So this is how you can solve this question. Therefore, maybe to answer, maybe some of you, okay, is there another method of finding this fuel needed for the trip? Therefore, this special step here, this step, the first step here, yes, there is another way of solving this. You can use your cross multiplication. I'm gonna just write it here. You can use your cross multiplication. How do we solve the first step here? How do we solve the first step? Already we're given the rate. I'm gonna just write it here at the bottom. Like we already know. Let me just remove this part here. So we already know that the rate, it goes, you can write it as a ratio. Yeah, you can write it as a ratio. The ratio, it says that 10,3 liters, that is the liters. Compare it with what? With the distance. The distance, it's 100 kilometers. So now we already have the distance for this trip, which is 607 kilometers. So now if you already have the distance, so we're going to convert this distance to a number of liters that we're going to need. So some of you can put X here and do cross multiplication so that you can solve the number of liters that are needed for each trip. So the car, that rate is also a scale. That rate is a scale. So we are already being told that it uses 10.3 liters for 100 kilometers. So now if the kilometers they are for a trip is 607 from Cape Town to Port Fort West, so how many liters are you going to need? Therefore, we saw that it gives us about 62,521 liters, then which is less than the capacity of that car. So therefore, we said there is no need for a refilling here. So there's 0 times and then times of refilling here. So if you are using the other route number 2, therefore you're gonna need 1, and then because the liters are going to be required about 73. So now that's how you can solve this question. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed this session. Make sure that, guys, you like and subscribe on the session, and make sure you share with others. But if you need this material, guys, you can check the information there, and then I will send this question to you as one pack, because now I've just separated this question. So we are left with last question, guys. I've separated these questions into 4 sessions, guys, so that we can maybe so that we don't lose focus on terms of how to solve these questions. So thank you very much. Yeah, check out the next question. This questions will be the last on this segment, and the next question is this one. So make sure you check out the next video. I'll be covering this question.